Greetings and welcome to the AfterWords program. My name is Bible Defense Chike, your host, and I'm joined today by Bishop Dijanava Akita, this week's presenter, minister, to present our sermon for this week, Always Ready. And we urge you to continue to watch us and to, of course, like us and share our information broadly. Greetings and welcome, Bishop Dijanava, and of course, happy Mother's Day. This is Mother's Day weekend. As a mother, in preparation for a Mother's Day sermon, what were some of the things that drove the focus of your message as you were speaking to these other women who, in some ways, know what it means to be a mother?
Well, you know, I'm glad you asked that question because I struggle with it. Anytime I try to come up with a message, I'm always trying to figure out what message can I give? What would I want to hear? What do I not just what do I want other people to hear, but what would I want to hear? And I think I wanted to be a message that resonates not only with mothers, but with fathers, with the whole community. And a message that is symbolic for mothers, but it also applies to us as a community, is that we have to always be ready. We always have to be ready for what's to come. Because if we just find ourselves asleep and not conscious of what's going on around us, we can find ourselves in a precarious situation that we can't get out of. And I think that as mothers, we're always constantly looking for what's next or what's to come or what can we do to make things better for our children, for our family, and for our community. So always ready is a motto that I think was exemplified with my own mother. It seemed that she always was ready for what was coming up next. Now, she may not have been, but the impression I got because of the end result was that she was always ready for the next thing to happen, in spite of what myself or my other siblings may have done.
As you say this, I'm reminded of the old adage, and I hope I don't mess this up, that when you educate a woman, hence ultimately a mother, you educate a nation as opposed to when you educate a man. So that always readiness, could you maybe kind of tie that into that quote, maybe just a little bit?
Well, I think that when we talk about always ready, is that as a mother, you don't really know what to expect. You know that there's something happening to you. And it's like each day there's a new revelation. There's something new that happens, a new movement, a new occurrence. And you have to be ready to respond because you feel a connection with that child, with that person, that you have to do something to either usher them in or to protect them or to guide them or to direct them. And often I remember even growing up as a young woman that I would constantly, even though when I was going through different things, I would say, I'm not going to do things the same way my mother did it because I had my own identity, my own way. But I found myself calling and saying, Mom, what about this? What should I do? What kind of things? In other words, we create a network of communication between mothers that they guide us. And even, you know, when you're expecting and you go to different prenatal visits or you're in a community with different women, we share information with each other to help guide us through that process. And that means whether or not you biologically have a child or that you just raise somebody else or you serve as a mentor or auntie or cousin or big sister. It's that nurturing effect that happens. That's something that, you know, I can't speak for how you feel as a man, but I can tell you how it feels as being a mother and as a woman.
Yes, and I think that idea of the instinctual mother, if you will, like even if you don't have biological children, you still have this nature or instinct to always be ready. I think, I know it was prevalent in the experience that our ancestors had in enslavement. So it's ingrained, I think, in our culture, and particularly as it pertains to motherhood.
Yeah, it becomes something that you adapt to, that you kind of rise to the occasion.
Yes, regardless of what it is, and you are going to always be ready, I think.
Yeah, so, yeah, you have to always be ready. And like I said, always being ready doesn't mean that you have the answer, but you're always ready to respond, that you're not going to sit back and let things happen, that you have to involve yourself, that you have to be a part of the solution that's going on. And I think that's what mothers do. We try to be a part of the solution. You know, we have to adjust to the situation. because things change on a regular basis.
Mhm. You referenced the idea that Jesus did not morph from the manger to the cross, emphasizing, at least for me, this emphasizes the importance of his life. And I think about this, you hear people refer to at funerals the dash in between the years you were born,
Yeah.
you died. And I think in many ways, it seems like we focus on those two aspects of the Black Messiah's life, his birth and the crucifixion, but elaborate more on the importance of the life that he lived.
Well, he lived and he had interactions with people and with his community. Even this particular story, it has always intrigued me, because one of the things it talked about was that every year his family went to this festival in Jerusalem. They traveled miles and miles. The journey took at least a week, in terms of them, because they were like different dangerous roads that you could travel going down to Jerusalem. But they did this every year. And by the 12th year of the story, Jesus was familiar with what was going on in the practices and the celebration, which was a liberation. It was a liberation celebration. They were celebrating their liberation of their ancestors from oppression. And so they came together. And when Jesus's parents came and said, well, we were looking for you, they're like, well, wouldn't you know this is where I am, where I would be? This is where we always do this. We always participate. You know how I feel about our people and our covenant relationship. So he was being raised a certain type of way, and he had a certain kind of interaction or relationship with the community. He wasn't afraid. Now, I mentioned in my message that after 3 days, it wasn't like he was looking around trying to figure out where was his parents. It didn't say anything about him being hungry or him being tired or him being sick. He was comfortable and he was conversing with the elders and with the other people who were there. He felt a sense of belonging to the community. He belonged there, and he was trying to understand how he could play a role in making sure that they could be successful.
Yes, you also expressed that the Black Messiah was born during a time of distress, that the nation of Israel was oppressed and dominated by the Roman Empire, its power, and that resistance to Rome was often met with force. Please help our viewers understand the parallels of the reality of that time and the oppression, and that how it relates to or parallels the reality of African people today, locally and globally.
Well, I think, historians have said that during the year that Jesus was born, there were 4,000 Jews who were crucified around the walls of Jerusalem. And that, we know that John the Baptist, he was beheaded because he dared to go against the Roman government. So there was a price to pay when you went against the people who were in power. And so the people were under distress. I think about today that we live in a society where we're constantly bombarded with negative attitudes and negative comments about what Black people are doing. Sometimes you look at the news and the first thing you hear is a Black person has done this, a Black person. But, even as recently as last week in Okaloosa County in Florida, there was a Black airman who was mistakenly shot to death in his own home because they had a wrong address. He was just sitting there. He was FaceTiming with his fiance. And, she heard the encounter where somebody was knocking on the door and the police burst in. And because he was trying to protect himself with a gun that he legally owned, they just shot him dead. But, there's instances where, just driving down the street. I don't know about you, but sometimes you have this feeling when police cars approach you, are they going to stop you? Are they going to ask you questions? Are they going to demand that you do something that you don't feel comfortable doing? That's being under distress. We live in that kind of world now. And how do we prepare? How do we prepare our children for that? To say that you can't just be yourself, you just can't go naturally and feel that you are able to be who you are and to represent who you are.
Could you say a little more about how the programs and theology of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church addresses the reality, and how do mothers and leaders in general prepare our children to navigate in a system that denies their self-worth, that overlooks their abilities and their stereotypes, their character. So how do the programs of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, how do we prepare young people for this? We know this work we're doing, it is intergenerational. So
Right. Well, first of all, we have to take control of our narrative. We have to tell our story. And I don't know about you, but I know that as a young child, my mother would tell me stories about our family and the things that we did. And, you know, you would listen to those words because you knew that she was guiding you. And as a movement, we understand that we have to control our narrative. There have been so many negative stories told about Black people, stereotypes that have been told about Black people, the denial of our history, you know, the whole effort to ban books in school because we don't want Black students to feel that they have a connection with their past and their culture. But we have to, as a group, recognize that we can control our narrative. We don't have to accept the misrepresentation of what Black people are, who Black people are, and what we stand for. And as a community, we can do something to make a difference in our life. And that means that we have to be ready for what's to come because, you know, I think, you know, we hear about systemic racism, but it rears its head in different ways. It could be the denial of voting rights. It could be the denial of DEI initiatives at school, but it rears its head in different ways. And we have to always be ready for when it rears its ugly head and understand that we have a destiny that we can control, that we can be self-reliant, that we can be a self-determined people. And we don't have to wait on somebody on the outside. We have that inner ability ourselves to make it happen.
thank you so much for a powerful sermon and for more conversation on the sermon in the form of this afterwards discussion. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Is there anything that I may have overlooked or anything else you'd like to leave our viewers with?
One thing, and that is, no matter how old we are, as long as we have breath, and that's what Miss Overlee shows. At 97, she's saying we still have things to do. We still have work to do, and we still are able to do it. There is no expiration date on being committed and working for the liberation and upliftment of our people.
Thank you so much, Thank you so much, Bishop Deja Nava. Thank you to our viewers for joining us today. Please remember to like and share our broadcast across all social media platforms and continue to join us during our weekly stream on YouTube. We invite you to join us again next week and every week in our continuous afterwards discussion. God bless and have peace.